My name is Mark Thompson, and I'm 32 years old. I never thought I'd feel like a stranger in my own family. My dad worked hard his whole life to create something meaningful, a legacy for my sister, Jessica, and me. He was my hero, a man who valued family and taught us about trust and honesty. But everything changed after he passed away. Jessica, my only sister, became someone I barely recognized. Growing up, we were close, always there for each other. I thought that bond would never break. But on the day of Dad's funeral, I saw a different side of her, cold and distant, nothing like the sister I knew. A week later, Jessica asked me to meet with Dad's lawyer to discuss the inheritance. I showed up, expecting a simple talk about dividing what Dad had left behind. I didn't want much, just enough to remember him by and start fresh. But as soon as I walked into that office, something felt off. Jessica sat across from me, calm and confident. I didn't know what she was planning. The lawyer placed a thick stack of papers in front of me. "Mark," he said, "Jessica now has complete control over your father's estate." He explained that Dad had signed everything over to her, leaving me with nothing. It felt like a punch in the gut. "What? That can't be right," I said, looking from the lawyer to Jessica, hoping she'd explain. Jessica barely looked at me. "It's all legal, Mark. Dad made his decision. You have a week to pack up and move out of the house. After that, it's mine." I couldn't believe it. The family home, the one Dad worked his whole life for, was now hers alone. I had nothing. Stunned, I watched her leave without a word, leaving me to deal with the reality of her betrayal. I was left with no family, no home, and nowhere to go. That night, I packed up my things, feeling a mix of anger and disbelief. How could Jessica do this? The sister I once protected had turned into a stranger, driven by greed. I closed the door behind me, knowing I'd never see that house again, and walked into an uncertain future. But I promised myself one thing: I wouldn't let her betrayal define me. I'd find a way to rebuild my life, no matter what. Starting over was harder than I thought. With only a few dollars, I rented a small, run-down apartment on the edge of town. I worked any job I could find, from waiting tables to stocking shelves, just to survive. Each night, I fell into bed exhausted, my body aching, my mind replaying the betrayal again and again. Losing both my father's legacy and the sister I trusted was a wound that wouldn't heal. But something in me refused to give up. I wanted to prove to myself, and to Jessica, that I was stronger than she thought. I kept working, saving every cent, and after months of hard work, things started to change. I landed a stable job at a mid-sized company. It wasn't fancy, but it was a fresh start, and for the first time in a while, I felt hopeful. That's when I met Sarah. She was the head of a large company, known for her sharp business skills and determination. We met at a work event, and we hit it off right away. Sarah was different from anyone I'd ever known, smart, caring, and ambitious. We started dating, and as time passed, I fell in love with her strength and kindness. With Sarah, I found a sense of stability and hope I hadn't felt in a long time. A year later, we got married in a small, private ceremony. Jessica didn't come, not that I wanted her there. I thought I had moved on from her betrayal. But life has a funny way of bringing things full circle. Shortly after our wedding, Sarah offered me a high-level position in her company, one with responsibility, influence, and a great salary. I was thrilled, not only to work alongside my wife but also to prove to myself that I could succeed on my own terms. One day, while I was going through employee files at the company, I saw a name that stopped me in my tracks: Jessica Thompson. My sister, the same person who had taken everything from me, was working at Sarah's company. She had been there for years, working as a middle manager. I couldn't believe it. After all she had done, she was right there, under the same roof, not knowing I now had authority over her. At first, I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to confront her, to demand answers and maybe even an apology. But another part saw this as a chance to finally make things right, not by talking but by taking action. So, I kept quiet about our connection and just watched her from a distance. I saw how she cut corners and manipulated situations to get ahead, just like she had done to get Dad's inheritance. Months passed, and I quietly gathered information on Jessica's work performance. It didn't take long to see that her ambition led her to make bad choices. Her record was full of complaints, unfinished projects, and signs of dishonesty. And yet, she was close to a promotion that would give her even more power. I was patient, gathering solid proof. I didn't want to rely on rumors, I needed facts. Every missed deadline, every dishonest move, every mistake she covered up, I documented it all, creating a report that showed her true behavior. Finally, the day came. I had built a strong case against Jessica. It wasn't just about her recent actions, it showed a pattern of dishonesty, manipulation, and greed. I gave the report to Sarah, my wife and strongest supporter, and we went over it together. She read through the details, her face growing serious. I had no idea she was this careless, Sarah said, shaking her head. We can't let this go unnoticed. With her support, we brought the report to the board. Jessica was called into a meeting, not knowing I was behind it all. She walked in confidently, still the same self-assured person who had taken everything from me years ago. But her face changed as the board laid out her actions, unfinished projects, poor choices that cost the company money. Jessica tried to defend herself, explaining each accusation, but the evidence was too strong, too clear. For the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. The cold, calculating look she had worn when she betrayed me was gone, replaced by panic as she realized her career was falling apart. I stood quietly in the corner, watching her world crumble. I didn't do it out of hatred, I just wanted justice, something she had denied me when she took everything our dad left behind. Finally, the meeting ended. The board informed Jessica that she was fired. She had lost her job, her reputation, and the influence she had worked so hard to build. As she left the room, she looked at me, and our eyes met. She stopped, her face a mix of anger and confusion. Did you do this, Mark?" she whispered, her voice shaky. I looked back, calm and steady. "I didn't do anything, Jessica. You did this to yourself. I just made sure people saw the truth." She stood there, shocked, as I turned and walked away, feeling a sense of closure I had waited so long for. I didn't look back, and I didn't need to. Jessica was left to face the results of her own actions, just like I had to face mine years ago. In the days that followed, life went on. Jessica's exit caused barely a ripple in the company. Sarah and I kept building our lives together, and for the first time, I felt free from the weight of my past. Jessica's betrayal no longer haunted me, it was just a chapter one had finally closed. I had found my own path, my own success, and, most importantly, a family built on trust and love. As for Jessica, I don't know where she ended up. Maybe she learned from her mistakes, or maybe she kept going down the same path. But whatever happened to her, I knew that my life was no longer tied to hers. I had taken back control, found happiness, and finally left the pain of betrayal behind.